How's it going, everyone? I want to welcome you guys today to the very first episode of my podcast here, Production in Progress. I want to have my very first guest, a special guest specifically. And, in general, the whole purpose of this podcast is to have the brightest minds in the real estate world or in the real estate game here in the Chicagoland area and across the nation as we progress this podcast and as it grows. So today, I have a very special guest here today, out here from the Northwest suburbs. One of my favorite up-and-coming lenders and top creators, top creative minds on social media. We have Andrew Hartell.
What's up, Angel?
How's it going, Andrew?
Not much, man. I'm excited. Episode 1, huh?
Yeah, I appreciate you coming out here today, man. One of the things that, when we met was just trying to get something like on film and get content recorded.
Yeah, from the get-go, we were talking about how we were going to create more content, right? Now here you are. You got your podcast up and running. You got a bunch of episodes planned. I think this is going to blow up for you. This is awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. One of the things that, stood out from you, when we first met, was pretty much how, you were one of the very first lenders that I met where we didn't talk about real estate right off the get-go.
Seriously.
We jumped into real estate maybe an hour or an hour and a half after into our conversation. And that's something that stood out to me, and it's something I wanted to mention here today because I think that's it's different, right? Like when our intentions are very clear and stuff, where we want to meet of not just of business opportunities or business partners or work together in real estate, but also create different opportunities and avenues, which is the modern take. I feel that a lot of us realtors and lenders are going to work towards in the coming years, or come here 2023 and forward.
Yeah.
That I think hasn't been seen as much maybe in the past 5 years, but post-COVID world, post-pandemic world, you kind of start seeing how collaboration is very important and crucial. So
it's changed fast. It's changed really fast. And you're seeing just how we all have access to these platforms.
Yes,
to
definitely.
Get views and attention.
Of course, yeah. No, and definitely, and I think that's the way that we connected actually, right? We connected through Instagram.
Yeah, I never heard your name until I saw you on Instagram, I think, right?
yeah, man. And that's the thing I always feel as well. One of the ways that now that we're connecting, man, is that, and if you feel if it's like the connection's going to be, if it's the right connection, you feel the person's energy across the screen. I feel it's very, it's important too.
It is.
But, before we jump into the whole social media thing, I really wanted to get the listeners here and the viewers to pretty much, get to know you a little bit more. So we want to jump into my first question pretty much, how you got started in the business and what initially got you interested into specifically lending.
Yeah. I mean, good question. I always loved real estate. I always knew I was going to be in real estate. Honestly, I was kind of like at a crossroad. Was I going to be a real estate lender or a real estate attorney? Yeah. A real estate agent. After just kind of looking at things, and I was already a finance manager at some car dealerships, I thought it would be an easy transition, and it wasn't not. It was not an easy transition, man. This business is hard.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I did not know which way was up. I was kind of running around just with I felt like a chicken with my head cut off, honestly. I didn't know what actions every day were going to help me get business, and I didn't know what actions every day were going to help me get in front of more people that I could help get a loan, help buy a house, help refinance, whatever I needed to do. In the beginning, it was tough, just kind of running around, kind of meeting with a lot of agents like you, meeting with a lot of lenders, figuring out how they got business. And I want to say, I would say we're both kind of trendsetters for the Midwest. There's not a lot of people that kind of started diving into video and diving into content, which now that I'm looking back at it, we just should have started earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I didn't even get to until probably my second or third year in the business. And it really transformed things overnight, I would say.
Oh yeah, I agree, man. And then just going back to that topic of you, talking about the Midwest and stuff, it's that's how we kind of initiated as well. We're like, hey, we kind of see that, you hear about the LAs, you hear about the Miamis, it's like in the New Yorks, but then here specifically in Chicago, it's you don't hear the platform or the people and stuff. It's more you think like farm or haystack.
Yeah. You think it's just the Midwest, the prairies, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot here.
Exactly.
But I've always heard that in the Midwest, for some reason, we follow the trends that have already started on the East and the West Coast.
Yeah, no.
So
definitely.
When they've been doing video and content and reels and TikToks for a year or 2, 3 years, we're getting to the curve a lot later for some reason.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we want to change as well.
Yeah,
right? Definitely with not just with this podcast, but I feel like you said with the content that we make aside on these social platforms, reels, TikToks and stuff. Then I think that's just putting it out there, dude, and them clicking or any viewer clicking they're from Chicago, Midwest, or anywhere from Illinois or Chicagoland area. That's a big difference, man, because it's not your typical LA or Miami or New York. So it's a easier way to stand out here in the Midwest, in the Chicagoland area. So people don't see it as an opportunity. It's still not too late to get into it. So I think if you want to strap in before 2023, I think it's the perfect time right now.
I agree. It's never too late. So I tell everyone, I think we're actually still ahead of the curve. I think in 3 years, if you're just starting, you're going to be way behind.
Yeah.
I think you're not going to know which way to go. You're already watching an oversaturated market of content. All the other, realtors and lenders are going to be way ahead of you. So I just think now's the time.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, definitely. And going back to like our first questions, like when you first started in the business, like, do you think like, with aside from all the ups and downs, it's like, do you think social media or just in general, you creating content, was that a big difference maker with generating leads, or what are some other ways that you generate leads as well?
100%. Just to answer your question directly, yeah, that was a big. It changed the game for me. Getting in front of the camera more often. Not only did I get out of my comfort zone because I was not comfortable. I've heard a lot. I'm natural on camera. That's awesome to hear, but I think that was from practice. I've made hundreds of videos, and that definitely shows. But I'd say it changed things pretty quickly. Just getting out there, kind of figuring out what people wanted to hear. I studied a lot and I consumed a lot of content to figure out kind of what was valuable information. And what I found is most valuable is always just referencing really relevant things that are happening in the market or in our day. That's why I think the stories are such a big part of it, because the story is like our behind the scenes. So that's where I put the most relevant stuff. Normally, if a client just did something they shouldn't be doing, or just a great thing just happened, I'm going to throw it right on my story first, because it's fast, it's quick.
It's like the lessons, right?
It is. But showing all those little relevant things, I think that's what people love, because then they're like, oh, when I'm buying a house, that's what I'm thinking is, what happens if I do buy a car? They say don't buy a car. What happens if I do? So that's why I love it. It's just a storytelling platform. It's good for us to get out there and be able to show, the rights and the wrongs and different experiences, and then people can make their own opinion from it.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think it's like, it's changing the perspective of like bombarding people directly on messages and stuff. And I think it's more like you make that decision. It's like, we'll put this content out there. It's for you. It's for the buyer, the seller, and the investor, the consumer in general. But the point is that, it's out there and the choice is yours from their free will. Because then I actually had this friend of mine this past week actually tell me a story where like, this individual, this business person was like reaching out to them, and they didn't quite really know what they were about. And then they were already setting up Zoom meetings with them, and like already like scheduling Zoom meetings with them and stuff. And like, they had no idea. They
had no context. They're like, what are you trying to get at?
Exactly. It's like, well, one, it's like, I don't know you. Number two, it's like, well, what do you want? Right. And then number three, it was more like, I'm not even sure what service you provide. So I think now with just social media, man, or us having this phone and the capabilities of these phones now with each freaking like new integration and stuff, it's like, man, can you imagine how much like you can put out there?
Seriously.
People will know you before you even like realize that like, oh, dude, like you've put so much content out there that people know you as the individual, not just that business person. That's what people want. And especially with the future generations, man, it's like, man, they're looking for Andrew. They're looking for Angel. They're not looking for just us in a suit. They're looking for that individual.
Yeah, they're looking for who are you outside of the suit? Who are you outside of work? And that's why a lot of people, there's always been like this toss up of, should I have a personal account and should I have a business account, right? And I think what I tell everyone is like, why would you be trying to build like two cities at the same time? They're both going to end up mediocre. Whereas if you just put all your focus into one, and don't be worried about screwing up the algorithms. If you like snowboarding, post snowboarding. If you also like fitness, do it. Real estate, do it. Put it all on there. Show people that you have a lot of different tools and you do a lot of different things. And now you're a likable character. You're an actual person that they like and they follow. You're not just the mortgage guy. When I only post mortgage stuff, that's what people expect. I find myself getting muted. I lose followers. But then I post stuff about my cars, or I post stuff about sports, and people are like, oh, he's real. They like the other side of you. They want to figure it all out.
Definitely. It's like being like not just one-dimensional, but multi-dimensional. Just having those different facets. Like, hey, there's more than just a suit and a tie. And then once they see that, they really get to relate to you on a different level. And I think it's a beautiful thing because, if like, I think you mentioned you started this like, 2-3 years after?
Yeah.
So like me, I started this like on my second year as well. It was right when the pandemic started. And to me, it was more like, man, had I started this before, like, I don't beat myself up about it, but had I started this earlier, then like, I know my career would have been a lot different than right now. Maybe this podcast would have started a year before, but it doesn't matter, right? But the point is that like now with people that they have these opportunities where like you have these applications or these platforms, you have these editing apps on those applications now. It's like, dude, what else can you ask for?
Right.
Just
You have it
press
all at your
record.
fingertips.
Yep, it's all in your fingertips. And once you do that and you get going pretty much, it's like, man, like you have the world in the palm of your hands.
Right.
Just consistency and then
Agreed.
just pushing content out there and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing is to have authentic content, you just need to be doing things every day, right?
Yes, there we go.
Like when we're all sitting at home and we're thinking about what kind of content to make, no relevant information's coming up, no valuable things are coming that we can go and give to our followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we're out there every day in the trenches, we're either in an Airbnb provided by Blaine and Lily, where we're at
Yes.
now, and we make connections there, and then we come out here and we do this sort of work. We're actually out here, we're talking about real estate, and then we're going to go meet with our clients, we're going to do these things. That's where the content comes from. If we just sat here all day long and just created content, we'd run out of things to talk about very quickly.
Definitely.
And then we just have to keep, regurgitating the same stuff. So that's where you see the best content creators are actually out there doing what they're preaching.
Yes.
They're good at it.
And then going back to your authentic content, it's like, what are some of the ways that you spark ideas for your content? Like, what are some of the ways that you come up with your ideas aside from working in the field? I think that's a crucial one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you're in the field, I think that's like, it helps so much because one, you capture like obviously the showings, right? Or
Right.
what you're like viewing that day, but then also like with your client, it's like when you're out there, you kind of get to like all the questions that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like that could be future content too.
Yeah.
But what are some of the ways that you come up with your content, like ideas or what sparks it pretty much?
Sure. And that's the thing. I mean, past relative things and looking at whatever's relative and good for that day. I'm looking at a lot of different things I'm reading myself because there's certain times where I have creative energy and there's certain times where I'm out of creative energy.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting there and I just feel like, I need to post something because, I feel like my followers need some education today. If I have nothing that's relevant or if I have nothing that's just coming to mind and it's like I got writer's block, and then sometimes I just got to push that to another time. And honestly, most of my ideas come at the most inopportune times, right? I'm either at the gym in the middle of a set, or I'm driving to an appointment, or I just got on the phone with someone and an idea pops in my head where it's like, oh, that would be a great video. And so honestly, I grab my notes app because like you said, our phones are right at our fingertips. I grab my notes app every single day and I write down notes for videos and content. And you just always have to be writing that down because you're going to forget it soon. And then it might have been a good idea, might not have been. That's what's funny about content. You just got to keep throwing stuff at the wall, right? You just make a lot of content and there's going to be stuff that stands out. And there's going to be stuff that isn't that great, but they can't all be hitters,
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, you just don't want to let it slip because like when you write on your notes or you write it somewhere, it's like, now it has potential to be executed, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Now I'll take action on it. But I have had those situations where like, I didn't write it down, or especially in the beginning, you have so many ideas and then like you don't write it down. You're like, dang, what was that one idea? Where,
Seriously.
Like, it had me so excited. It was like, you feel like your eyes were just glowing, man. But then from there, it's like, you take it from there and then you're like, man, how many opportunities or how many ideas did I miss because I didn't write it down?
Right.
So then from there, you just learn and progress. But another thing that I wanted to ask you was with content, it's like, or going back to what I had asked you, it's like you mentioned that some of those days where you feel like you have like maybe a drought, right, of content ideas.
Yeah.
Like those are usually the days where like maybe sometimes it's better not to post, right? But then somewhere throughout that like time frame, something sparks, right?
Right.
So can you tell us like what kind of motivates you to get going if maybe there's a drought or maybe a couple of days of like no content and stuff? What kind of gets you going once?
Sure. Normally, so it's like, normally there's blocks of days where it's just I don't have a lot of creativity, or maybe I burned it all out of me last week. And then normally it's kind of interactions like this and doing things like this. It starts getting my gears going into a different direction. And then doing that for a couple hours or a couple days, all of a sudden I'm just going to hit a moment where it's like, okay, I need to make some time for content. And that's kind of the hardest thing about my mind. I don't know how everyone else works, but I like time blocking. I like trying to stay organized, but odds are if I say Wednesday is going to be my content day, I have no energy for content on Wednesday. So I really try to keep big flexible blocks on my calendar so that if I have an energy burst or all of a sudden, I'm watching someone or I'm talking with you, we get off a phone call and I'm like, I got some good ideas right now. We should start at least, putting something on camera. Then I'm going to start just be like, all right, the next 2 hours, I'm just going to try to make some time for this because I need to get it out, So more so for me is when it arises, you have to act on it because we know throughout the week it's not always there.
What suggestions or what recommendations would you have for anyone that's trying to get into like the video content space, especially if you're in real estate, like maybe specifically if you're a lender? What are like some ideas or some recommendations that you have for them? Like what type of content can they make if they're starting off as a new lender?
Sure. I'd say be authentic first, right? For me, I'm funny. Well, at least I think I am. I try to get on like the trends a lot because some of the trends are really hilarious. And I do that, right? But I've had people who've given me feedback and be like, I could never do that. I don't dance. I don't like the visual acting that you go along with the trends. Like, that's not me. I'd rather just like put educational stuff out there.
Yeah.
So that's where authenticity is going to be the biggest thing. You have to be original to yourself. So if you don't see yourself as a funny, trendy, laughy type of person, don't try it. It's going to come off as forced, and that's not good. So if you want to start, then I would just say, figure out what is you. And I'm sure we've all watched content, so we know what kind of things like pull at our little heartstrings, like, oh yeah, I could do that, or I couldn't do that. So I would just say stay authentic. If you're funny, the easiest thing to do is follow these trends and replicate trends. That's the easiest way to get started because there's already millions of people replicating one trend. So you can just jump on board, you can redo your own trend and kind of make it your own piece. But I would say just doing you. That's the biggest thing. Don't try to replicate someone else's magic because it's going to come off as fake.
Yeah, it comes out forced in the way where, like, one of the things that we had, like, or one of the issues that I had in the beginning was, like, just focusing straight up educational content. But then once I started to, like, push myself, we're like, you know what, maybe, well, like, first you have to get bored of yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? You get sick of your own sickness.
Right.
So that's how I felt. I was like, man, you know what, I have to kind of change things up. And from there, it's like, all right, let's start following some of the trends. Like, what do you watch, right? Mm-hmm. What do you, like, when I'm on Instagram or when I'm on TikTok, like, some of the things that I think about is, like, I'm consuming this content as in the eyes of a creator, right?
Right.
Because I'm like, dude, these are creators that have, like, so many ideas.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can I replicate this where, like, I can make it comfortable to the viewer's eyes as well, where it's not like, anything can come off cringy, whatever, right? But the point is that, like, where you're comfortable and you're authentic, like you mentioned. I think that's key. Authenticity is very, like, it could take you very far. And then, like, at the end of the day, once you put out your, whatever video or whatever trend that you felt like would fit you perfectly or your personality, then I think that right there is just like the magic, man. It's just the magic sauce that people are looking for. And it's key.
It's like almost being like candid. Like that's what we've talked about in the past, but it's like some of the best content creators that I see right now, which to drop names would be like, Andrew Tate, he's not even creating content. He just kind of, like I've been talking about, he's just pushing, like living content, life, but then he's having other people create content for him. He doesn't have an Instagram page. He doesn't have like pages for himself. It's kind of crazy to see that. But some of the other guys I see, like Alex Hormozy, it's almost like, it looks like every single day he's in the same spot with a different outfit recording. So what I'm thinking is he must just be going about his day, grinding and hustling, doing things that obviously give him content ideas. And then when he's got something that sparks, he's just got to go into his spot and he's got to go make something. And then he just has it posted. And I'm sure someone at that level probably has people post everything for him. Mm-hmm. But still, I think he's like grinding, hustling. He's like, oh, this is good. This just came to me. I can't imagine someone is so calculated they're planning all their content in advance. Yeah. Because if I'm already planning content I'm going to speak on in 2-3 weeks, it's like, then how relevant is it? It's planned in advance. There's no room for it being candid and real. So I think everyone that is creating good content is doing just that, and they're just capturing that energy when it's there. And they're just like, when you have an idea, just run with it. At
the moment and stuff, because it's one of the things we had as well, where like we would stack up, and it's like, we have content stacked up in case, or like where it's educational. Yeah. But then it's like the actual day to day, or like captivate the viewer with like actual like reels or TikToks that like you feel is necessary as well to like sprinkle in there. Yeah. That content will come on a day-to-day basis type of thing, or like a couple of days in advance. But the point is that like you said, like we can't calculate all these things 3 weeks in advance, because then right there it's not organic.
Right. And it's like, I'm sure you saw there were huge trends like early this year. Everyone was saying, let's batch our content. Yeah. Let's get 2 or 3 outfits together and we'll sit there for 4 hours and we'll try to make as many videos as we can. And that can be really good if you make sure that there's still like an authenticity to it. Because right now we've talked about, we see getting rewarded as things that are candid and they are more authentic. When it's a perfectly put together production and you can tell that someone recorded probably 10 or 15 videos in one sitting, I've seen the algorithm starting to turn those down because it looks like they just are producing things and they're just trying to make something that goes viral. Whereas the people that are really going viral, they're recording something that happened on a moment normally.
True.
And that's the stuff, it's like it wasn't expected necessarily.
What do you think, one of the things that you recommend as well for anyone that's like trying to get like when it comes to gear or equipment, like what do you think is one thing that people should like look out for, specifically that the algorithm's looking for little pinpoints like audio,
Sure,
like we mentioned,
sure.
or aspect ratio.
Audio is huge. I think everyone should get like a wireless lapel mic.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things. A stabilizer or a tripod is obviously like the first thing you need to really record.
Yep.
We all wish we had someone following us around recording, but we don't. So we need that tripod. Yeah, but I'd say lapel mic's huge because no matter what, if people can't hear you, or if you want to sprinkle some audio in or some music behind it, and it's kind of whiting you out and you can't hear it anymore, then you got to get something to pick you up. So I'd say lapel mic is like the first thing with the tripod. And then you need light. You definitely need lighting.
Yeah, lighting. Yeah. I think it's lighting and audio is like one of the crucial things that like the algorithm will either spit out or take in. But like I think those are the two crucial ones for sure.
I agree.
But I think like just going into certain platforms is like I think one of the most important things as well that I just wanted to mention was that each platform speaks its different language.
Yeah.
And once you get to kind of understand what language they're speaking, then you can kind of translate that with your content as well. So it's one of the tips that I wanted to mention as well, just because it kind of ties in with the whole. Like with your recommendations, pretty much what you were recommending. So I think it's very important just to understand that like the languages of these platforms and the languages that these platforms speak in order for you to actually start producing and creating content. But just my other question I want to jump into as well, how important do you think consistency is, and how important is it going into 2023? So
Yeah. Well, that's a big thing I'm changing for next year. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's basically been 12 months since I started on a very big video push. I started with Reels about 12 or 13 months ago, and I started with let's do one a week. I very quickly went to 3 a week, and bits and pieces throughout the year I was doing 7 pieces a week, if not 9 pieces a week. And consistency is huge. And if you can start doing 2 posts a day, and they're good, valuable posts, not just you're making a post because you have to. It's hard. That's very hard to do, 14 posts a week. But if you can do that and you can stay consistent with it, you're going to see very exponential growth because the algorithms reward that. When they know you're posting, you're like a programmed television show. They know when you're going to be on, and so your
digital
followers.
Athlete.
Yeah, exactly. They know when you're going to be on every day. And you start to perform like that, and it starts to become easier for you because it becomes habit. It becomes easier for your followers because they know, oh yeah, he's always posting new things. So they're going to go to your page more often to see what they missed. So I would say consistency is huge. You can't just throw one up there every month and hope to grow,
So true, man. And, jumping into our next question, pretty much it relates to this as well. But, like, how do you think that content or pushing out content in general, video content, how do you think that's changed the perspective of your future potential clients and how your clients see you or view you? And how do you see that, going into this year as well, 2023, how it has changed overall, like maybe before if you didn't do videos and now that you do videos and you're going to keep doing videos, how do you think that perspective changes in the client's or in the consumer's viewpoint?
Yeah, that's a good question. All the norms have changed, I would say. 5 years ago, people thought it was cringy for us to be on and creating videos all the time. And some of them are trendy. That stuff would be so cringy, people wouldn't watch it. They'd unfollow you because of it, right? Now it's super normal. Everyone does trends.
It's like, I'll follow this guy.
Yeah, I'll follow him because he's funny, right?
Yeah.
And it's also the same thing with all the content we're creating. We have to be able to be honest, I completely lost the train of thought on what we were talking about. Can you ask the question again?
Oh, no, no worries, man. Yeah, so pretty much it's like, so for anyone who has it, like who weren't doing video before, but now they're doing video, and then it's like going into 2023, so how do you think like the consumer or like the client will view?
How do they view it differently?
Yep, how do they view it differently?
Yeah, and what the track I was kind of going down is as you're creating more of this stuff, it's kind of become more normal and they're going to perceive it differently. So it's all about what you're putting out. If you're putting out all educational stuff, then you're going to have a very specific niche of people that follow. They're going to follow you because you're always dropping, nuggets of information. If you're always following the trends and you're just being funny, you're posting more social stuff, then you're going to get a different type of follower. But I think for the most part, our followers are going to perceive that it's just more normal. So it's going to be, I think it's almost going to be like the Google search in a matter of time, where if they look you up and they don't see that you're putting stuff out there, content, and you're not putting things out there that are educating people, then they're going to look for someone who is, because they can go and get all this information from someone's page and they just learn things without even talking to them. So it's going to be very easy to strike up a conversation because they feel like they know you.
Definitely. And it's one of the things that I've noticed as well, where it's like, I've had, obviously with video and putting content out there, it's like influence comes as well, right? So it's like aside from influencing or like also educating your clients or the consumer, then it's like you build partnerships, you build collaborations.
Yeah.
And one of my questions that I had for you as well was like, as a lender, how do you feel like that's worked for you and your business in a way where like has video helped you create relationships and collaborations or partnerships much easier?
Yeah.
Not just on the consumer side, but like just like, partnerships
100%.
and stuff.
I mean, you already know where it's going. I mean, realtors and lenders are always looking to collaborate, right? So when I come across a realtor who knows they want to make content, and normally they're in a younger generation, but
Yes.
I have seen some older realtors who are realizing that that's the wave. They see I'm making content, so it's very easy for them to reach out and be like, hey, could you give me pointers? Or, how did you do
Nice.
that? Or so they did that breaks down the walls, because there's always kind of this weird relationship between a realtor and a lender, where every time I call up a realtor, they think I'm just trying to ask them for their leads. Most of the time we are, because that's why our relationships even thrive. But also it's like I'm probably trying to add value to, any good lender or partner is going to be adding value, so it's equally beneficial.
Correct.
So I would say it's helped so much, open up so many more doors. Us, with our content, we started talking about that. Other lenders, other agents, everyone you can think of in the industry. If I'm creating content, then they know I can create content. They know it's easy. I'm easy to talk to.
There you go.
And so it
Yeah.
just creates talking points too. It's not just that we're going to talk about interest rates and what kind of loans are available and what are the prices going up or down in houses. It's like that's all the stuff that people expect us to talk about. But when we have something else that we can talk about mutually, and it's something that's going to help us grow our businesses, it makes something to start a friendship on.
Yeah,
We can
definitely.
talk about it all the time too.
And it flows so much organically too, because then and then I think it's the modern take towards it, and it's a conversation we were having before we started shooting, but it's like we're the realtor and the lender, right? We build a relationship, but then if we're both like our intention is to create content together, we're creating an avenue or like a road, sort of setting the pavement where like, hey, consumers can come here.
Yeah.
If you have any questions regarding real estate and then like lending, or if you're looking for a home to buy and stuff, or any questions, we're creating something where like now they can come to us. So then when they come to us, then it's a lot easier, because before it was more like, well, did you get one, or did you get one, or did you get a client, did you get a referral,
Right.
or do you have a referral from me? Now it's like we're creating like sort of like a street or an avenue where like referrals or any clients could come in, and then it makes it easier for both of us.
I agree. And I want to see more collaborations. I think collaborations they're really slept on. I think
They are.
most agents and lenders most realtors and lenders, they won't work with another realtor or lender if it's like the same. Most lenders like
Definitely.
me, they won't call me up and ask for a collaboration because they feel like we're, competing. And it's like we are, but this isn't a zero-sum game, meaning like it's not just one winner and there's a loser. We can both win. We can both have thriving businesses. If our industry does good, we do good.
Exactly.
And if both of our pages do good, we both do good. So I love seeing the collaborations. I think people are sleeping on it because it really it throws out a bigger net. It like doubles the size of your funnel. If we both have a lot of followers, it puts me in front of people I would never get in front of when we collaborate.
Exactly.
So I think that's one thing that we need to be pushing for. I think if we're both doing like a collaboration a month next year, that's kind of my goal. With your podcast, it sounds like you're going to be collaborating a lot, but that was one of my goals, is like one collab a month for 2023.
Yeah, and then I think it's like, this is the first episode, and it's the episode that hopefully, like you mentioned, trendsetters. So hopefully the trend starts from there, and
That's
then
right.
we do see future collaborations here to 2023 and forward.
Yep.
But, one of my final questions that I had for you is, where do you see the market going in 2023 as a lender, and what tips do you have for buyers, or, programs or services that you want to throw out there to look out for, pretty much, if they are thinking of buying?
Sure. So you actually want to talk about real estate now? Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's what everyone always wants to know. This year has been crazy. The last 3 years have been crazy, right? This year has been one of the worst years to buy a house, they've said, like in the past 20 years. So that's kind of crazy and eye-opening. But I would say that that's all right. I'd say you take that into consideration, but take your own life and your own direction. That's the most important thing when you're deciding what you're going to do next. I have a ton of people who are like, rates are really high, right? So I shouldn't buy. And I'm like, well, are you renting? Because if you're renting, you're paying 100% interest. And people joke about that, but it's really true. You're paying off someone else's mortgage by paying a rent. So you might as well get your own if you plan on staying there. Sure. But as far as the forecast goes, and these predictions can always get so tricky, but I would say rates are going to start to come down. We're finally seeing some good reports that inflation is getting better, and that is the biggest driver of interest rates. So when inflation gets better, interest rates get better. That's big. I think as interest rates start to get better next year, it's going to create another rush, kind of like we had at the beginning of this year. I think a lot of people are going to see rates drop, and they're all waiting, just like all of our smart followers who are waiting for interest rates to drop. As soon as they drop, everyone's going to run, though.
Exactly.
We saw that last 2 weeks when they dropped from the 7s to the 6s. I had multiple applications come in just because people were like, "Oh, we should get this rolling."
I heard it went up by like 4% and stuff. So it's like,
yeah, it went up. It went up
like 2
huge.
weeks.
Yeah, it went up gigantic. So I would say the biggest thing is we're going to watch interest rates start to get better. That's going to make everyone happy. It's going to create more of a seller's market or a buyer's market again, and then we're going to have all these buyers rushing to the market. We're going to have overbidding on houses again, and I think across the board, houses are going to continue to appreciate for a while. I think supply and demand is causing houses to keep going up because there's not enough houses and too many buyers. So I think we're going to watch values steadily increase as rates come down next year to create a really nice buying environment. But expect an environment like it was the beginning of this year. Expect to offer over asking price and do everything you can to make your offer stand out. Just because that's what happens when there's a lot of buyers flooding a market. So that's going to be good for our industry. It's going to be good for sellers who are going to be getting more out of their houses and buyers too. I don't think I'd be timid. I mean, I locked up a rate on my wife and I's house this year at 6.5%. Thank you. 6.5%. Love to pay it, but I'd rather have that than rent.
Yeah.
You know, and if I waited any longer, I'd be at a little bit of a higher rate right now, but that's all right. You know, I still think buying there and waiting for the refi is the thing to do.
Exactly.
Lock down your houses, you know, while you can. I think we're running into an industry changing thing is going to happen. I think they're trying to make it so that we can't buy houses anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like the long-term plan that they have. So, you know, if you guys are like, you know, like for any viewers or listeners, just, you know, 2023 and then the next coming weeks is going to be very interesting.
It is.
Just as if you are thinking of buying or selling in general or just getting into the real estate market, you know, just reach out to your professionals because it's going to be a market to watch and, you know, keep an eye on pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I would be advising anyone right now to just be saying, take stock on your own life. Do you have a good amount saved up? Do you have a steady income? And then that's really it. Do you know you're going to be in a place for a while? If you have both those things under control and you're still renting, why are you still renting? If you're ready and it sounds like you're financially ready, you should just be taking the steps. I'm not saying buy right now. I'm saying take stock of where you're at, start talking to professionals and figuring out all the pros and cons because there are so many different, you know, benefits out there to people they probably don't know they have that they should just start to explore. Exactly. Because I think in 5-10 years, if you're still waiting to buy a house, it's going to be almost impossible. I think prices are going to keep going up. I think that the big investors like Blackstone and the other hedge fund groups are going to be buying up all the property and making it a rental world. So I would rather be the landlord that has a bunch of rentals than the guy that can only rent, you know?
Beautiful. Yeah, man. 100%. And well, just pretty much to wrap up the episode, man. Just want to thank you again for stopping by.
Love it, bro.
You know, hopefully this was the first of many and then recurring guests, man. You're grandfathered in for sure.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. I hope I'm back. I hope you have me back.